Hello, I'm Tim Tokwe. Thank you for stopping by. In today's tutorial, we are going to be making an underbust corset. So if this is what you're interested in knowing how to make, you want to continue watching this video, you also want to click on the like button and subscribe to this channel. So we are going to be drafting on a pattern. This is going to be the starting line and it's also the shoulder line. So I'm going to place my tape at this starting line and then I'll be marking my bust point, and I'll also be marking my underbust, which is 12 inches, and then I'm going to be marking the half length, which is 14.5 inches. Then I'm going to be marking the length of the corset. So I want the corset length to be about 5.5 inches away from my waistline. So I'm just going to count 5.5 from my waistline. So that will give me 20 inches. And so I'm going to mark that. Then I'm going to take my ruler and mark a straight line across each of these points. So I'll go ahead to label this now. This is the bust point, the under bust, the waistline, and this is the blouse length. So at the starting line, I'm going to be marking the neck measurement. So I'm going to be using 3 inches by 3 inches. This is the basic neck measurement. So I'm actually going to draft a basic bodice pattern first. So I'm going to use my curve now to connect the necklines together. So from the center here, I'm going to place my tape at the center here, and I'm going to be marking my shoulder measurement. So my shoulder measurement, I'm going to be dividing it into two. My shoulder measurement is 13.5, so I'm going to mark 6 3/4 here. So from here, I'm going to come down by 1 inch, and then I'm going to be connecting it to the neckline. So from the shoulder here, I'm going to place my tape there, and then I'm going to be locating my armhole depth. So I'm going to divide my bust measurement into 6 and then add 1.5 inches to that. So that's going to give me 7 1/4. So I'm going to mark it. Then I'm going to take my ruler and draw a line across it, and this will serve as my chest line. So from this shoulder here, I'm going to connect it to the chest line, and that will be my armhole depth. So what I'm going to be doing now is to locate the middle of this armhole depth. So this is I'm going to mark it here. Then I'm going to come in by 1/2 inch at that middle. And then on the chest line, I'm going to be taking my bust measurement. So I'm going to divide my bust measurement into 4. And that will give me 8 1/4. So I'm going to be connecting these 3 points with my curve. So I'm going to make sure I place in a way that it captures each point. So now we are going to be placing the dart. So I'm going to be placing it on the waistline. So I'm going to be using half of my nipple to nipple measurement. So my nipple to nipple measurement is 6. So half of it is 3 inches. So I'm going to mark that on the waistline, on the bust point, and also at the blouse length. So I'm going to connect these 3 points with a straight line. So at the waistline, I'm going to be taking 1/2 inch on both sides. And I'm also going to do the same thing on the blouse length line. Then I'm going to be connecting these points with a straight line. So from the waistline, I'm going to be connecting towards the bust point. But I'm going to be stopping about 1 inch before the bust point. So now I'm going to connect to that 1 inch mark that I marked before the bust point. So we are going to be taking the horizontal measurements. So we already took the bust measurements here. So now we are going to be taking the underbust measurement. So I'm going to place my tape at the underbust line, and then I'm going to be dividing the underbust into 4. So that will give me 6 3/4. Then I'm going to be deducting 1/4 inch from it so as to tighten the underbust. So that means I'll be marking 6 1/2 here. Then I'm going to mark the allowance that we have for the dart here, which is 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to be placing it back. Then on the waistline, we're taking the waist measurement. So I'm going to be dividing the waist measurement into 4. And that also gives me 3 1/4. But on this waist, I'm going to be deducting 1/2 inch to tighten the waist. So that means I'm going to be marking 6 1/4 here. So I already marked that. So now I'm going to be measuring the allowance, the dart allowance that we have here, which is 1 inch. And then I'm going to be placing it back. So on the hip line, on the length line, the blouse length line, we are going to be using the hip measurement to divide this. So I'm going to divide the hip measurement into 4, and that gives me 9 1/4. Then I will mark the dart allowance that we have here and then place it back. So now I'm going to be connecting these lines together. So I'm going to connect the bust to the underbust, then the underbust to the waist, and then the waist to the blouse length line. So this is like the basic bodice pattern. So don't forget that we want to work on the underbust. What we are cutting is an underbust corset. So now we are going to be working on the underbust. So this underbust line is what we want to exactly work on. So from the underbust line, I'm going to go up by 2 inches at the center here. Then on this side, I'm going to be coming in also by 2 inches. Then I'm going to be connecting from the side to the center with a curve. So I'm going to take my curve now and connect this line together. So I'm going to find a way to blend this curve line to the underbust line. So I'm going to be placing my curve like this just to blend it in. From the waistline, I'm going to be coming down by 1.5 inch. Then I'll mark it here. Then I'm going to be connecting from this point to the center front here. So I'm going to be using my curve to connect that. So but before I could do that, I'm going to want to close up this dart. So I'm going to close that. To be able to close that up, I want to cut off the excess that we have at this lower part. So now I'm going to take the dart like this and try to close it up. So I'm going to be using a tape to pin it together so that I'll be able to conveniently draw the curve. So now I can bring my curve and then connect from that 1.5 inch to the center front here. So I'm going to place my curve like this so that it will connect 2 points, and then I'm going to use my marker to draw the curve. So this is what it's going to look like. So now I can go ahead to remove my sellotape. So I just want to redraw the line that the sellotape has taken away. So this is what it's going to look like. So this is what we need. We don't need this upper part. It's just this lower part that we need for our underbust corset. So I just want to redraw the line so as to show clearly the part that we are going to be needing. So this is what we need. So I'm going to be cutting this out now. So I'm just going to cut away the upper part because we don't need it at all. So this is what we actually need. So I'm going to be using this to cut the back part before cutting it out completely. So I'm going to be placing it on another pattern paper and I'm going to be pinning it together. And I'm going to be cutting exactly what we have for this front part on the back, for the back part also. I'm going to be cutting exactly what we have here. So before I remove this front part from the back, I'm going to be marking what we have, the waistline. So I'm going to be marking it on both sides here, the waistline, and I'll also mark where our curve starts from after the waistline. So I'm going to mark that also on this back pattern. So for now, I'm going to set aside the back pattern and then work on this front part. So now I can go ahead and cut the remaining parts. So I'm going to be, this is what we have for the front part. So I'm going to be labeling this as the center front and the side front. So for this side front, I'm going to be measuring the waistline 3¼ inches here. So I'm going to locate the middle of it and then mark the center. So this center, now I'm going to place my ruler on it and then draw a straight line across it from the top to the end. So this, I'm going to be slashing this part now because there's going to be a bony channel on each side of the pattern. Like all these sides, we are going to be having a bony channel. That's where we are going to be putting our bony channel. So I'm going to go ahead now and label this middle front and then I'm going to slash it. So this will be all we have for the front pattern, and then we are going to be putting our bony channels on the sides on each of this slashed area. So now I'm going to go ahead and label the lower part as L so that I don't confuse it with the upper part. So this is the back part. you can see where we marked as our waistline. So I'm just going to connect this line first. So this other line is where our curve is going to start from. I remember that for the front part the curves end here, but before I even remark the curve, I'm going to be placing the dart. So I'm going to locate the middle of this waistline and then mark it. So I'm going to draw a straight line across it from the up to the lower part. So at this center on the waistline there, I'm going to be taking 1/2 inch on both sides, and that will be my dart allowance. And I'm also going to mark the same thing at the length area, the lower part here. So I'm going to be connecting these points with a straight line. So then I'm going to be connecting it to the upper part this way. So now this side, I'm going to be drawing a curve. You can see that the front one ends here, but for the back, it's not going to end there. It's going to come up by, I'm going to be coming up by 1.5 inches here. So I'm going to be placing my curve now to connect from that side to this part. So before I can place my curve, I also close the dart here, just like I did to the front. Then I'm going to be placing my curve this way. So you can see that I already captured the 2 points. So now I'm going to mark the curve here. Then for the upper part, I'm also going to be coming down by 1 inch. So that means for the upper part, I come down by 1 inch, and the lower part, I go up by 1.5 inch. So this 1 inch now, I'm going to be connecting it towards the side this way with my curve. So let me say this again. The upper part, I come down by 1 inch, and then the lower part, I come up by 1.5 inch. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. So I'm going to label it as the center back and the side back. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. So this is what we have for the back. I'm also going to label the lower part as L so that I don't mix it up while cutting on my fabric. So this center back, we are going to be taking 1 inch away from here on the upper part, and the lower part we are going to be taking 2 inches. This is to create an opening for our eyelet so that we can be able to snatch the waist or our body, whichever way we want to snatch it, to give us the room to snatch. So I'm going to cut this out now. So this is what we have for the back. So for this side back, you can decide to cut it or slash it again, but I'm not going to do that. That's optional. It totally depends on you. I'm not going to do that. This is how I'm going to be leaving the back. So this is what we have for the back. I'm going to be bringing the front pattern now. So this is what we have for the front pattern. So now I'm going to be cutting this on the fabric. So this is the fabric that I'm going to be using. So I have half yard of this damask-like fabric, and taffeta here is what I'm going to be using for lining. It's also half yard. So you don't have to use taffeta, you can use the regular lining. So I'm going to be folding my fabric into two. You can see that I have it on fold here. So I'm placing the front pattern, but I'm going to be creating a space in between each of this pattern. So I'm cutting this like, because I'm not going to be cutting it on fold, it's going to be open because I'm going to be using a channel there. So see here, I already have allowances on each of the pattern. So I have 3/4 inch on the sides of all the patterns so that I can have enough room for my boning. And at the upper part, I have 1/2 inch, and the lower part also. But this is the back also. I have 3/4 inch or allowance on each side. Then on the upper part and the lower part, I have 1/2 inch on them. So I'm going to go ahead now and cut the patterns out. So because it's on fold, that means I'm cutting 2 of each pattern. So I'm going to go ahead now and cut out the lining and also iron and interfacing on each of them. So I'm going to be using ST. I'm going to iron the interfacing on the fabric and also on the lining. So I already cut them out. This is what it gives me. So I put this pattern here so that I can be sure that this is what it is. And you can see that I arrange them the way they should be. And I also ensure that the upper part is at the upper part and the lower part at the lower part. So I'm going to be joining this together like this. So you can see that I have my interface in iron to them already, and I also iron it to the lining. So I'm not going to be sharing the sewing tutorial now because I don't want this video to be so long. So this is just a drafting one. So I'm going to be uploading the sewing tutorial. So just make sure that you have everything arranged the order it should be. So we are going to be sewing it on our next tutorial. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate. Don't forget to like this video and also subscribe to this channel if you are yet to do so. Bye. See you in my next video.